Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Kaduna State, Senator Obasani, Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, Dr. Hadiza Sabo Balarabe, the Speaker, Kaduna State House Assembly, the Speaker, House of Representatives, ably represented by our Chairman, Committee on Housing, Honorable Abdulmani Jibrin Kofa, the Speaker, Kaduna State House Assembly here with us, Honorable Yusuf Dahir Liman, members of the Kaduna State House Assembly here with us, Your Royal Highness, the Emir of Zazzau, Dr. Ahmed Malli, CFR, our Royal Father, ably represented by Durman Zazzau, Hakim Ngobichi, the Honorable Minister of Environment, Balarabe Abbas Lawal, the Secretary to the State Government, Dr. Abdul Qadir Mayere, the Honorable Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Right Honorable Aminu Shagan, members of the State Executive Council, Kaduna State, the convener of this event, MD, who is the MD CEO of Kaduna State Property and Development Company Limited, Honorable Abubakar Rabi Abubakar, the board chair of this international exhibition, Mr. Shamsuddin Muhammad Yusuf, the Bula Manzazo, the MD CEO of Kaduna Housing Exhibition Limited, Dr. Olayemi Shodine, the MD CEO of the Federal Mortgage of Nigeria, Mr. Shehu Usman Osidi, the MD CEO of the FHA Mortgage Bank, Elijah Hayatuddin Aliyu here with us, the heads of federal agencies, I can see Dr. Bogaji is here with us, the heads of the state agencies here with us, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. The theme of this event is Kaduna State Sustainable Housing Development, a model for northern housing reforms. It came very apt, and I would like to commend the organizers of Kaduna State International Housing Exhibition, the Kaduna State Property Development Company, the Kaduna Housing Exhibition Limited, for convening, planning, and organizing and holding this very important event. I believe that with the wide array of housing experts, which I can see some policy makers, government leaders, private sector players, housing design innovators, and housing finance institutions and leaders, I'm sure we'll all live here better informed and an actionable framework accelerating housing development, not only in northern Nigeria, but across the entire country. Before I proceed, I would like to commend my brother, political associate and dear brother, Executive Governor of Kaduna State, His Excellency Obasani, for his practical, inclusive, and pragmatic vision for housing delivery. I'm particularly impressed with His Excellency's focus on the need to provide housing for all, ensuring that citizens can afford the houses that are built and available, and that even those who cannot afford a home are provided with decent and basic shelter with social housing. This is the right approach. By taking this course of action in housing development, His Excellency has demonstrated that he understands clearly where the majority need of housing is, the importance of catering to this need, and also the imperative in defining the right methodologies, tactics, and initiatives of making it possible. This Kaduna State approach to housing delivery as mapped out by His Excellency is in line with that of the federal government and the renewed hope agenda of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR for housing and urban development. At the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development under my leadership, our stated vision is quality housing for all, with a deliberate inclination to attention towards the 80% of the population who simply cannot afford even a mortgage as a measure to get a home. We also intend on encouraging responsible construction techniques to ensure that they are climate smart and friendly to the environment. It is in line with this that the theme of the housing exhibition, Kaduna Sustainable Housing, a model for northern housing reforms, is so apt. As I said earlier, housing provision is an ongoing activity. As long as there is live population, there will be population growth. As long as there is population growth, there will be migration. And there will always be need for housing. Before I proceed, it is important for us to understand what a sustainable housing development means so we are all on the same page. Sustainable housing development means building homes for people in a ways that are environmentally responsible, economically viable, and socially inclusive. To elaborate, it means that we must promote building policies that emphasize using energy-efficient building materials, appliances, and systems that reduce energy consumption, and greenhouse gas emission, preserve natural habitat, implementing landscaping with native plants. It also means making housing affordable, promoting social inclusion, equity by providing mixed income housing that ensure a sense of community and togetherness. So sustainable housing also means designing homes that can withstand and adapt to changing environmental conditions such as climate change and natural disasters. So overall, sustainable housing development means building for today with an eye for tomorrow. It encourages the deliberate development of integrated living communities that are not only environmentally friendly, but also enhance the quality of life for current and future generations. The implication is that as government and housing delivery stakeholders that are here present, it is important for us to ensure that the solutions, strategies, and actions that we map out to develop and deliver housing must be sustainable. It is important also to state that all three components of what sustainable housing development means, mindful of the environment, ensuring economic viability, and affordability and social inclusion are important. The theme, Kaduna's Sustainable Housing Development, a model for northern housing reforms, showed that Kaduna's housing development policy ticks off all the three sustainable housing development criteria and therefore presents a good model for other northern states. Please let us applaud His Excellency and Kaduna State Government for charting a good path. I'm all aware of some of the various commendable reforms and initiatives undertaken by the Kaduna State Government and will mention them within the course of my presentation as appropriate for inclusion purposes. And I'm sure that within the course of this event, there will be a comprehensive presentation by the organizers of the program showcasing the Kaduna State Sustainable Housing Development Model. Again, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, for the sake of context, I would like to give some background on the state of housing in Nigeria, including challenges, opportunities, and solutions, then zero in on Kaduna and the North as appropriate in the process. Under the renewed hope agenda of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we at Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development believe that the challenges of housing ecosystems are multifaceted. We also believe that each of these challenges cannot be tackled in isolation, but through a holistic approach that takes into account the critical linkages across the entire housing value chain. This value chain approach has identified the following as being critical to sustainable housing development. The first one is land, then infrastructure deficit, housing construction costs, household demand, and access to affordable housing finance, amongst others. Now let us look at the land. Land is the foundation of the housing delivery process. It is a key to economic resource that is fundamental to development and sustainable housing delivery. This means that effective land administration and governance is not only crucial to development, but requires instrumental laws that ensures its viability, accessibility, efficient use, transferability, and convertibility. We are all aware that in our country, Land Use Act is the principal legislation that governs the land use. However, the law has been unable to address the issues of land administration that have persisted. Principally, the issues stem from the challenges faced in the implementation of the provisions of the Act, which includes but not limited to the following. Number one is the lack of clear implementation guidelines, which leads to unnecessary bureaucracy. Number two, the entrenchment of the Act in the Nigerian Constitution, which makes any attempt to amend it very cumbersome. That's why subsequent government have found it very difficult to amend the Land Use Act despite its obsolete stand up till the moment. The requirement of governors' consent on all land-related transactions, creating a lot of bottlenecks and resulting that the low rate formalization of land ownership. In addition, the fines laid out in the Act for offenses are too low to be punitive. Statistics have revealed that only 10%, in fact, less than 10% of land in Nigeria is registered and traded regularly. Now, what means is that only less than 10% of the land has certificate of occupancy in the whole country. That means 90%, over 90% of the land in Nigeria are unregistered. Because of the low rate of formalization, land in the country has limited earning capabilities as an asset and as a securitization commodity. According to the PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is the PwC, these unrealistic earnings, also known as debt capital, is estimated to be more than $300 billion, which is over 60% of Nigeria's gross domestic product. That means we are sitting on a debt capital on the land that has been unregistered, that can easily be used as a commercial, as an activity, as an asset. It's now we are just sitting on it unutilized, amounting to over $300 billion, which is over 60% of the Nigeria's GDP. So under the Renewed Hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we are intent of fixing this anomaly and unleashing the capacity of the housing sector to not only provide decent shelter but boost economic development, inclusive growth and job creation as part of government effort to create $1 trillion economy. In February this year, we set up a land reform start team comprising diverse stakeholders, including the state governors, the traditional institutions, the experts, stakeholder experts, which are then to develop a blueprint for sustainable implementation of reforms aimed at streamlining land administration and ensuring easy, cost-effective, and efficient access to land to all Nigerians. Critical to this effort is the establishment of the National Land Commission, which we will now establish that will provide the regulatory framework for operationalizing the Land Use Act. The Commission will play a pivotal role in administering and regulating land tenure systems, implementing land tenure regularization reforms, and integrating environmental considerations into land use planning and management process. The Land Reform Task Team has been entrusted with the key terms of reference, including the review of the existing land tenure laws, the digitization of land records for real-time access nationwide, and the development of guidelines for equitable land distribution and allocation. Furthermore, we are implementing the Federal Land Information System, the FELIS, to centralize records of federal government land, ensuring that safety and integrity are entrenched. We are also looking at implementing the National Land Titling Program with the aim of improving land formalization from the less than 10% to 50% in the next 10 years. By doing this, we are encouraging states to implement systemic titling and regularization, uniform land registry practices, adoption of the advanced technology in land administration, and the establishment of the National Mortgage Registry. We are also advocating for the adoption of the modern mortgage foreclosure law and the establishment of the Electronic Mortgage Asset Registry, EMRS, which will help to de-risk the mortgage sector and facilitate access to finance for land and housing development projects. High construction costs is the other threat to sustainable housing development that we are working to address. This includes material and labor costs, which together account for over 85% of total housing construction. This is still rising due to macroeconomic viability. To fit this value chain deficiency, we set up a building material manufacturing task team early this year to understudy the sector and provide an actionable plan of action. Our goal for establishing the building material manufacturing task team is to set up a building materials manufacturing hubs in each of the 6 geographical zones of the country to leverage local building materials with a view to reducing import dependency and lowering costs, which will also lead to reduced home prices and create jobs for our people. The other aspect is inadequate access to affordable housing financing. As you are all aware, mortgages are the core source of home financing in our clients. Mortgage to gross domestic product ratios for South Africa, United States of America, and United Kingdom are about 30%, 60, and 70% respectively. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, a mortgage to GDP ratios hover at about 0.5%. We are just down lowest, one of the lowest in the world. So commercial mortgages are also unattractive and unaffordable with interest rates as high as 28% per annum. So the best source of housing finance is the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria currently, which offers home loans at 6% over a 30-year period, using funds that it pulls together from the National Housing Fund scheme that is being managed by the bank. Even at that, the bank is undercapitalized and has limited capacity to create the impact that is needed. Under the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President Bola Ahmed, we set up a housing reform task team to develop a blueprint to strengthen the capabilities of both the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria and the Federal Housing Authorities to deliver sustainable housing to scale. We are also working to create the capitalization of the FMBN, particularly to 500 billion naira. We have made a presentation to the Federal Executive Council last council, and a committee was set up to streamline some issues before we represent. To capitalize the FMBN will surely give it more financial power to ensure sustainable housing finance necessary for sustainable housing development. Another major issue that we must confront as we aim to deliver sustainable housing is that of affordability. Statistics have shown that almost half of Nigeria's population of over 201 million are poor and have weak purchasing power. In fact, 43 million households, of the 43 million households, over 85% have less than 1.1 million purchasing power. Of this 40%, about which is 17.2 million households, fall into the poverty line group, and 47%, which is about 20.2 million, fall into the low-income group. On the whole, statistics reveal that Nigeria is a low-income country and has only 13% of its population as middle class. The recent macroeconomic challenges, including inflation, have made things worse. So it is against this background that the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President, the Federal Minister of Housing and Urban Development, is working on establishing the National Social Housing Fund. Here we aim to pool funds from the government budget, from philanthropic organizations, well-meaning Nigerians, towards providing decent shelter for Nigerians within the low-income, the vulnerable brackets who simply cannot afford to own their own homes. Some of these units will be delivered at no cost to Nigerians. We have developed a concept note that is undergoing review. Once concluded, we will present it to the Federal Executive Council for approval and legislation. Social housing is not only a necessity, it is also a security insurance for the rich and the poor. Because housing is capital intensive and the government has limited funds, we must find alternative collective avenues to help our brothers and sisters who are underprivileged. It is for our collective good. It is in this way that the underprivileged, we know that we are one and we are brothers keepers, and that will help social cohesion, understanding, and peace. This is because home ownership gives individuals a sense of belonging and a stake in the community. Another aspect of sustainable housing delivery is the availability of the housing stock. Under the Renewed Hope House Cities and Estates program of the ministry, which Mr. President launched in February with groundbreaking of 3,112 housing projects in Kansana, we are working hard to make this possible. One aspect is the issue of the public-private partnership. We as a government create the enabling environment for private sectors developers to thrive. For instance, we signed an agreement with the consortium of developers for the delivery of 100,000 housing units nationwide. Under the PPP arrangement, developers get the land, then they also get the finance, while we facilitate the bankable off-taker guarantee from the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. So with the no direct financial involvement, we are catalyzing the development of over 100,000 housing units nationwide under the arrangement. Another aspect is the leveraging budgetary allocation and free land from the state governments. Through this arrangement, we are bringing down the cost of housing units by over 30%. This is a strategy that we are using to deliver the government-sponsored component of our Renewed Hope Cities and Estates program. Over the past 2 months following the presidential flag-off, we have done groundbreaking for 9 locations, including Katsina Yobe, Gombe, Kano, Sokoto in the north, and Ibonyi, Abia, Akwa Ibom, and Delta in the south. This week, by tomorrow, next we'll move to Osun, then Oyo, and the Nasarawa and Benue states. Overall, we have done launch of the program, and we aim to complete the groundbreaking of total of 6,612 housing units, in addition to the 3,000 housing units that are under the PPP. So to tackle the affordability, we have taken different options, including the 30-year mortgage loans which the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria is providing, the rent-to-own payment plans of the FMBN, outright and instrumental payment purchases. We have also included cross-subsidy in our PPP project models, so that certain percentage of the housing unit developed will be sold to Nigerians at concessional rates, while other percentage will be sold at commercial rates to enable the developers to recoup their own investment. Other sustainable features include organic and expandable housing designs to lower the barrier of home ownership. In this way, the 1 bedroom is built in a way that it makes it expandable to 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms as the income of the family or as the family increases in size. Also, we ensure that to keep the internal fittings to the most of the essential living and the rest of the owner to incorporate over time. What we are doing at the Federal Ministry shows the power of vision, the power of clarity, and the focus of getting results even in difficult situations. And I believe that the subnational governments such as Kaduna State can learn from it to deepen its sustainable housing delivery model. Like I said before, I can attest to some of the reforms initiatives that makes Kaduna a good model for other states. Particularly, Kaduna has shown great leadership through the early adoption of the model mortgage foreclosure law and the use of the geographic information system through setting up of the CAGIs, which shows the transformation potential of innovative solutions in easing land administration processes and reducing formularization costs. We encourage all states to adopt these measures and initiatives to boost sustainable housing delivery. The state stands as a good example of how we should approach the challenges of housing in the sector. In June 2017, I remember Kaduna State became one of the first states in the country to adopt and pass into the law the mortgage foreclosure law. Kaduna State has now a functional state model mortgage foreclosure authority that coordinates and promotes housing investments and mortgage development activities as stipulated in the foreclosure law. On the supply side, Kaduna State has implemented reforms in land administration, title and registration, and offered fiscal incentives amongst others. They have digitalized land administration through the Kaduna Geographic Information System, CAGIS. They have provided land for willing developers to help expand the housing stock and even began direct construction of low-medium income housing by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. On the demand side, they have developed single-digit interest mortgage arrangements with the Sterling Bank, the FHA Mortgage Bank, and the NMRC. The mortgage arrangement with the Sterling Bank has enabled the buyers of the non-essential residential assets, more than 80% of whom are civil servants, to secure mortgage loans to pay for the properties which were sold to open market value, offered by the Federal Mortgage Board of Nigeria. As a result, the revenue generation for the state has risen tremendously to over 44 billion per annum. The state has been in the top 10 revenue generating states in Nigeria and first among the northern states. Kaduna State has made all this possible despite the lack of amendments to the Land Use Act. It is therefore no wonder that the state has become a major source of foreign direct investments. I'm particularly impressed also by the state's Qatar Sustainable Project, which aims to deliver about 500,000 housing units. This is a laudable feat and a testament to the business-friendly environment of Kaduna State that is worthy of emulation. In conclusion, I believe that sustainable housing is a result of an efficient housing ecosystem, which I've enumerated. And while we aim for it, we must focus on fixing the housing value chain. That's the only way that we can be assured of long-standing results. Once again, I want to appreciate the organizers of this exhibition for the good work and look forward to constructive deliberations that will birth actionable initiatives towards meeting the housing challenges. Thank you very much.